everyone. Thank you for joining a new Invest webinar. We have another interesting topic for you today. We're again talking about AdWords, but and this time we have truly an expert at the topic. We are very pleased to have Diane Pease join us. She is the inbound marketing manager for Cisco. Her role is really focused on demand generation for around the Cisco's website. She's been, if you know Diane, if you've seen her, if you attend regular online marketing conferences, SMX, SES, or ClickZ, you must have seen her speak at some of these conferences. An amazing speaker, an amazing writer. She's been in online and traditional marketing for over 25 years. Now, I know Diane has expertise when it comes to SEO, social media, but really her main focus has been paid search and analytics. Now, Diane also worked with many clients, including Lowe's, Home Improvement, Series, Ulta Cosmetics, Glaxo, and Accenture as well. Now, before I turn it to Diane, just quick notes, just housekeeping notes. So you can definitely join the conversation and would love to hear from you. We have staff in North America that is watching the Twitter feed, so you can tweet at us at Invest using the hashtag InvestCRO. And let me also make sure that you're able to hear the, let me make sure I'm getting, the sound is not clear. Are you guys able to hear the sound? Is it clear to everyone? It seems that there's some complaining about the sounds as people are logging in. So I'm going to try and speak a little louder. Again, join the conversation. You can tweet at us at Invest using the hashtag InvestCRO. We have team members in North America and in Europe and in Asia who are on standby and they are ready to take your questions. I will present them to Diane at the end of the webinar, and hopefully we'll have a few minutes to do Q&A sessions. Also, if you have been following Invest for a while, we have a very special offer. The My Invest community is up and running. We've launched, for those of you guys who have been following us, we've launched the community now for, this is actually the 5th month, and there is about 1,200 subscribers on it, 1,200 different companies that are using it. That's really exceeded the expectations that we've had. Our plan was to have 200 accounts by the end of the year, so it just blew through those expectations. Really amazing. So you can get yourself a free A/B testing account by logging into pii.invest.com. Also, if you have an e-commerce website, if you have a lead gen type website and we'd like a conversion optimization assessment for your website, you can send an email to convert@invest.com. Finally, make sure that you follow our YouTube channel. We put out the Invest CRO video series, has been fairly popular. We are actually on episode 7, and we'll be launching the podcast, the Invest podcast, probably in the next couple of weeks. With that, Diane, thank you for joining us.
And let's go ahead and get started. I appreciate everybody dialing in today.
Very good. So let me go ahead and just make you the presenter. 1 second.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And apologies, everyone, a little bit late here. So I promise it'll be worth your time. So our presentation today is going to be about AdWords, how to make your life a little bit easier. So again, thank you for joining, and sorry for the little bit of the technical delays. So as I was introduced a little bit before, I'm currently an inbound marketing manager at Cisco. Really what that means is you kind of do a little bit of everything digital, but a lot of my focus is around, I've been in the paid search world for probably about the last 10 years. Got started with SEO when SEO was just getting off the ground. People didn't even know what it was. So it's been exciting to be in the space for the last, oh gosh, maybe 10 or 15 years. I also have experience working in agencies, so I've worked for several really large agencies in New York, and also worked for some really small agencies as well. And I think kind of the nice thing about that is you get to work with a lot of different types of clients, you know, especially around paid search. Everybody has a lot of those same pain points, whether you're a big multinational company or if you're just a small company that just has a handful of people and a small paid search budget. As was mentioned before, I'm a writer. I love to write for Search Engine Watch and also some other publications as well. I also like to get out on the speaking circuit too. That's also a lot of fun. Just recently was at ClickC Live up in Chicago speaking about remarketing, and we're going to touch a little bit about that today. I also have written for the Journal of Digital and Social Media Marketing about mobile, which is another exciting passion of mine. And then I've done a lot of webinars as well. So looking forward to going forward with this one and talking to you a little bit today about AdWords. So yeah, this does happen. People go out there, create accounts, spend money, and they're not really paying attention to what's going on. And it is kind of a little bit of a funny picture, but it's really not, because I have encountered customers and companies where people go in and think they know what they're doing and try to do things the best they can, but sometimes they don't. And then through not really monitoring your campaigns and watching for your match types and things like that, you can end up spending a lot of money and not having a lot of success with AdWords. And it's really getting harder. AdWords is not as easy as it was, 10 or 15 years ago. You're constantly getting updates out there. I mean, the world's changing all the time. If you go out there and if you read a lot of the publications and things like that, there's so much more of a huge focus on mobile these days. Again, you read about these new updates, about new products and features, and it's like, well, what should I use for my client? What's going to be the best thing for me to do? Should I use A or should I use B? And at the same time, if you're managing multiple paid search accounts, or even if you have one, a lot of times there's not enough time in the day to, do your research and look for these new things that are out there. And then at the same time, trying to manage your account, keeping up with the demands and changes that you might have, new features that need to be added. You might need to launch a new campaign or add new keywords, and it's just a lot of things to keep in mind. And account management isn't easy, let's just face it. Especially if you have a lot of different accounts, you're trying to keep your eyes on a lot of different balls, different demands for different clients. And then you're expected, of course, to make sure that ROI is a big factor. Making sure that your campaigns are profitable, you're making money for your clients, or providing some form of return of investment for the dollars. And then also you're having the demands to add new things or make changes. And it's definitely a lot more of a complicated process than it was years ago, when AdWords really wasn't that complicated. But AdWords has changed a lot with marketing, mobile, shopping, so many different components that weren't there a few years ago that are there today. But what if you could get time back in your day? What if there were ways and things and methods that you could put into place that would allow you to make your job a little bit easier, and that you could have the time back to do some research and look for different ways that you could, help your clients' campaigns and expand them? If you could do that, wouldn't that be worth it? So that's what we're going to talk about today. So here's some of the takeaways we're going to cover. And these are things that I'd like you to be able to go back and use today. So again, I feel like when you're sitting in a webinar, it's great that you can take some little tips, little tricks that you can go and implement this afternoon when you go back to work. So one of the things we're going to first talk about is how to keep up with those AdWords changes. What are some great blog sites that you can go to, people to follow, and we'll talk about that in a little bit more details. We're going to talk about best practices. We're going to also talk about how to automate some of those tasks so you can get some of that time back in your day. We're going to talk about checklists. I'm a big proponent of this, and we'll talk a little bit about how those work well. And then we're going to talk about some PPC tactics that are good to use as far as keeping your campaigns optimized. So this is my dog. I have two. She's one of these rescue dogs, and she's actually loves to eat, as you can tell. She has this look in her face whenever I tell her that, it's 3 o'clock in the afternoon, and it's not time to eat, but she just sometimes gives me that look like, really, you can't feed me right now? But I also kind of like to use this slide to say it's like, really, another update from AdWords? You've got to be kidding. Didn't we just have one a couple of days ago? Again, going back to the point where it is really difficult to keep up with things out there. And if we move to the next slide, I'm going to tell you some ways that you can make this a little bit more of a day-to-day practice. So there's different places you can go to get some information. The Inside AdWords blog is great to keep up with a lot of the changes. They do some great write-ups and things out there of what's going on. I love Search Engine Watch. Obviously, I'm a little bit biased to it, but Search Engine Land is also another great website. There's some really great writers out there. In particular, for Search Engine Land, you've got Larry Kim, who is the founder of WordStream, and Jenny Marvin. Jenny's great because what she will do is she will take one of these new features that comes out, and she'll dissect it. She'll talk about the good and the bad and the ugly about it. So it gives you a great idea to say, okay, so this is something new that comes out, but is this really right for my business? This is a great way to, you can get the information from the AdWords blog about something new, but then you can follow these people on, Twitter, LinkedIn, to get some really good insights and actually go to Search Engine Land and Search Engine Watch to get the skinny on these things. I like to build this in part as my checklist strategy, so we'll talk again about the checklist. But the thing that with AdWords is their changes are coming so quick and fast, it's good to check it multiple times during the day. And a lot of times on my calendar, I'll just have a little bit of time set aside, first thing and the last thing, just to kind of go out there and do some reading, see what's going on in it, because things happen so quickly, and it's always good to be proactive, especially with your clients, because your clients may be out there seeing the same thing, and you wouldn't be able to address these things as they come up in conversations. So let's talk about some best practices. There's a lot of different things out here. We're going to cover accounts, keywords, ad groups, ad copy, and landing page extensions. So this is a lot of material, and I know we're probably a little bit more pressed on time, so we'll try to go through these as quickly as possible, but I do want to cover some of these because it's always important to make sure that you do follow best practices. So this is kind of a little bit of a one-on-one type thing, but it's very important when you have a new account. You want to develop a hierarchy that incorporates, thoughtful organization and strategy, and it should mirror the website. So if you really make sure when you're talking about, especially if you have a product or service, that you look at your campaigns, as the sub-level under the account, and then your ad groups would be more like your specific products and things like that. One of the things I always recommend if you're coming into a legacy account is do an audit. It's amazing how, whether somebody just left the company or has transitioned to a different position, you want to make sure that you understand what they've done and why they've done it. Now, whether they're there or not, kind of go in and be a little bit of a detective to try to figure out why they might have done something. But it's a great way not only to get to know the account, but it's also sometimes a great way to find some really quick wins, because, again, a different set of eyes looking at something can see something a little bit differently. I know one of the things I did when I came in at Cisco was first thing I did was I did an audit of the U.S. paid search account, and actually was able to find some things where I was able to go to the agency and make some suggestions on some things to change. So, it's always good when you're picking up an account that, has been, worked on by somebody else. You always want to make sure that you can go in and take a fresh approach and come up with some new ideas on how to make that one better. So let's talk about ad groups. Very, very important to make sure ad groups are tightly themed with similar relevant terms. And this is something that I really am a strong proponent too, because it makes, while it may be a little bit more of a time-consuming effort when you're setting up an account, it can make for stronger performance and easier management going down the road. Really, again, you want to focus on a single product, and you want to keep your number of keywords small. 8 to 10 is really the max number that you really want to try to keep there. This allows for your ad copy to be much more relevant, which again, relevant ad copy, keyword structure is also going to help improve your quality score as well. And keywords, keywords are the foundation, really the basis. And it's really about quality versus quantity. One of the things I've found sometimes in working in particular with companies such as Google is that, you ask them to do a keyword build out for a campaign or an account. A lot of times you'll get a ton of keywords. And sometimes those keywords aren't necessarily even having relevant search volume for them. So I'm always a big proponent that it's not about the number of keywords, it's having the right keywords. Making sure that they actually have search volume out there in the industry and they're actually being searched upon. It's also talking about creating a match type strategy. There's a lot of different theories behind the best way to do this, but really I think it's also understanding what the match types do. With modified broad, it's basically a farming way. You're going to get a lot of you get a lot of impressions with these keywords, but they can also cost you a little bit more money. It is a good way to do some keyword research to see how people are searching out there, which can change all the time. We know with phrase, because that's going to be, using keywords that have a prefix and a suffix that's similar, you're going to have lower impressions and a higher click-through rate, and of course exact, which is always the lowest impressions and the highest click-through rate. Typically, a lot of the strategies I've seen lately involve having an exact match campaign along with a modified broad match campaign, and then being able to balance things out, looking and see which keywords perform the best. It's always super important to have a lot of robust negative keywords. And because of the fact that now that you are no longer able to include covariance and you can't opt out of it, it's really important to make sure that if there's a term that you do not want to show up for, that you have it in there. And making sure that your terms, based on how people can do research, you don't want to have anything negative. Obviously, if you're in a particular industry, you don't want to have bad press, anything that's negative to go on with that. So really think about how you want to do your negative keywords. But there could be a drawback to that as well. If you have, especially if you use broad match negatives, obviously you could, eliminate a lot of traffic from campaigns. And I have been a victim of this where I'm going and putting, a couple of negatives out there and not really thinking as much about the match types, ended up blocking too much traffic. So be very, very careful when you go out there and you create your negative list. Which kind of leads to the next discussion, which is what we have SQRs, which they call the Search Query Report. This can really be your best friend, and it's actually a great strategy to use when you're launching new campaigns, or especially if you're picking up one new. It's going to tell you how people are searching. Again, one of the biggest things to think about is the way people search changes over time. So again, seasonality aspects, but again, industry news, things like that can reflect about, change how people are actually looking for something. So the great thing is it's a great way to see and add new keywords to your campaign, but you can also see where those negative keywords are that might be showing up. I actually used to work with a client that sold hearing aids. So one of the things we would always look for is any kind of, things about, negative publicity, problems with hearing aids and things like that. So you want to make sure that, your ads aren't showing up when people type in those particular terms. So we'll talk a little bit about, how to use these in the checklist in a couple of slides. So ad copy. Ad copy is one of those things I feel with paid search, sometimes we kind of do a lot of setting and forgetting, but it's really important to make sure that you optimize your paid search copy to reflect, again, landing page changes, product changes, and just keeping things fresh. So we're going to talk about some of the 4 B's that are really important with ad copy, about being unique, direct, and aware, and legit. So being unique. How you say it can make the difference in how your flower might, what your website might be versus something that's going to be much more elaborate. So you want to think about how can you make yourself be different than somebody else? How can you stand out from your competitors? How you describe your product or service in your ad copy can make the whole difference in perception. And again, first impressions and perception can be everything. So you want to be direct. Let's face it, there's a lot of competition out there. You want to ask people for their business. So it's always important in your ad copy to make sure you have a strong call to action, like contact us today, buy now, and make sure that you have that sense of urgency in there. You want to have a compelling offer as well. A lot of times, people, I know for myself, especially with Christmas shopping, obviously, buy one, get one free gift with purchase, that's always a big attraction. And of course, free shipping always gets everyone's attention, especially right now. People always would like to get something. And if they're going to be comparing you to other people, I know what I do. I kind of look to see, okay, what kind of offers am I going to get out there? Even before I click on the ad, I'm sizing things up. So think about that, being able to give something, or promoting something to get someone's attention. And again, getting inside the consumer's heads. What are they thinking about? What are their pain points? What's keeping them up at night? Is it, you're solving a problem for them, or you're giving them an offer that they're really looking for. It's always important also to include keywords in your ad text and vanity URLs. That, again, gives your ad a little bit more relevance, and, again, is another way to reinforce your keywords in your ad copy. So it's always important to be aware, maybe not be quite that aware, but, looking in the mirror and seeing something that you're not used to seeing. But it's important to know who your target audience is. That's so key, and sometimes people don't always think about who their audience is, and it's important to take the time and the research to do that. You want to speak their language. Writing ad copy for a pharmaceutical company versus writing ad copy for a retailer requires a totally different mindset. You need to speak the language of who that audience is, and depending on who you're talking to. We talked a little bit about pain points. What up at night? What is something that person is looking for that you're going to be able to provide them and answer that pain point for them? Being legitimate. It's always important you want to establish yourself as a credible business. And it's also you want to instill a sense of trust. People need to know that you're legit and you're real and you're a reputable business. And again, the beautiful thing about this is where we'll talk a little bit more about extensions, where you can talk about awards, your certification, your reviews, and your social followers. Balsam Hill does a great job with this, and of course, obviously, perfect timing for that. So you can see they've got, they're voted the number most realistic tree every year. And if you've ever seen their commercials on TV, they really are that way. And also, if you even go on their website, you can see that. They have, obviously a great social following on Google+, and they do a great job of incorporating extensions here as well, which we'll talk about in just a few minutes. So extensions, yes, a few minutes. I was actually right on the next slide. So there's so many types of extensions out there now, and actually I've included a new one that's fairly recent. We're going to talk a little bit about site links, callouts, the call extension, app, location review, and the new structured snippet extensions, which is really, I think it's probably about a month old, that allows you to highlight specific aspects of your products or services. So one of the neat things I think that's coming out with AdWords now is they're really allowing you to create a custom customer experience journey with your ads, being very personal and being able to even put more information in your ads than ever before. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the case study with site links. I actually used to work on the Ulta.com paid search campaign several years ago. And it was actually when site links first came out. And Ulta, obviously, is a great candidate for using this because of the fact they have so many different promotions all the time. Every week they have something different. So when they first started out, if you look at the bottom where you see like the 20% off items, the beauty treasures, baby bare minerals, flat irons, these were things that they actually used to use. Actually, I'm thinking this backwards, sorry. So where we have the callouts, which is where the free samples with the order, the join of Ulta Rewards, makeup, skin, and hair care, those were actually initially site links. When callouts came out, they kind of flipped things around a little bit and kind of looked at taking their site links and really focusing on some more specific product pages. But site links was something that worked phenomenally well for them because it allowed you to be able to go into interior pages to target and also be able to promote some of their special products that they have out there. So with the inclusion now of callouts, they've been able to actually flip things around and utilize what they normally had as site links now in callouts, and then come up with some different links, which is great. So enhanced site links is predominantly brand. Yeah, I'm on a cosmetic thing today, so we're going to go with Smashbox here. It gives you additional detail about your products or services. And the biggest thing with this is you get that more page real estate. If you notice here, look at how many lines of text you're actually able to take up on the page. And you can also emphasize those brand terms a little bit more. It gives you more of that page ownership experience. And callouts, fairly new feature, actually probably been out for probably about 6 or 7 months. It's an additional line of text that you can have in your ad. It's a non-clickable line, but it can promote special offers and it can complement your site link. So here's an example of how you can utilize it in being able to promote additional promotions, which is predominantly a good use of callouts, and then actually taking people to specific product pages on your site. So let's talk a little bit about landing page best practices. While we did have a lot of other extensions we could go through, I know we're a little bit pressed for time, so want to make sure we do have time for Q&A. But if anybody has questions on some of the other extensions, we can certainly cover those. So with landing page best practices, it's always really important to make sure you have a clear headline that's relevant to your search term that someone's looking for. You want a clean, non-cluttered design. Nobody likes going to a landing page where there's so many different call to actions, I really don't know what to do. Add copy that describes your product. If you're going to, if you have a form fill on the page, it's really good to have it not to be too terribly long. If you have like awards or promotions that have been done, like for example with this one with CNN, it's great to include as well. And obviously you want to have a call to action. And a lot of times on your landing page you may have more than one call to action form. It may be a buy now button, but making sure that that's that it's clean and easy to find on the page. So let's talk about automating some of those PPC tasks. And of course, I had to throw this one in here because I thought it was kind of funny. To have our automated reminder to remind you to automate. Yeah, well, I think we can all relate to that at some point. So let's talk about filters. I love using filters. It's a great way to take your many parts of your campaign and being able to look at succinct parts in specific areas. You can set a filter up on any of your AdWords tags. You can actually build it out like a query string to have multiple criteria. You can save them for free to use and provide a targeted view of your data. So let's talk about some examples, and I actually, in a lot of my campaigns, I have these pretty much as a standard practice that I, when I go out there and look at my campaigns every day. I like to look at these filters because it gives me, you know, a way to look at my data and see if there's anything that changes, because as we all know, things can change very quickly. So I always like to look and see where my quality scores are. Anything that's a less than 3, you know, try to take a look at those and see if there's actions that I can take on those to make those a little bit better. Keywords below the first, again, this can sometimes win, but it also depends on how expensive those keywords are. But sometimes you might find that, you know, you might just need to bump it up a little bit to be able to get that keyword on the first page. Looking at impression share that's less than 80%, that might, you know, give you an idea of some areas of improvement that you might want to do on those keywords. If your max CPC is greater than the top of page bid, this is kind of a good one to have out there to be able to bring those bids down. Especially if you're doing any kind of a manual bidding, obviously sometimes that can definitely happen. And good to make sure that you're, you know, aware of those. Another good one to have out there is your average position greater than 5, because you know these are keywords that are not, you know, being visible, and if you know there's opportunities to see if those things can be improved. From an analytics perspective, you can look at your bounce rate and your pages per visit to be able to see, you know, if I've got a landing page that's not performing and people are bouncing, you know, what can I do about that? And then with ads, you can actually, you know, again, filter things that have low click-through rate, look and see if there's ways to optimize those. Ads that are under review, disproved. I put this out here because if you're in the process of launching something new, you always want to stay on top of the fact that something gets reviewed or disapproved before you actually get the email message. So good way to, when you're doing initial testing and launching, to make sure that all of your ads, you know, if there's anything that comes out that's not working well, that you can take care of that. And then if you have search and display campaigns, it's a great way to just filter your data to look at things a little bit easier. Just kind of a simple one there, but if you have a lot of campaigns and you really just want to segment on which ones are search and which ones are display, it's a great little quick filter to set up. So automated rules are a little bit kind of the next step where you can get things a little bit more creative, and you can set these rules to, you know, for bidding purposes to allow you to, you know, have, you know, increase bids by a certain percentage. Different criteria that you build in there. The important thing with these is, you know, you don't want to set them and forget them. So making sure that you really think through the rule, but making sure that you keep a tab on it to make sure that, you know, you keep your mind on what might be going on in case there's anything that changes. If you see with this one, we had some rather interesting, you know, criteria for it. But again, if your campaign starts improving and things get better, you want to make sure that, you know, especially if you're doing like an automated bid increase, that you keep an eye on this. So here's some automated rules examples. There's a whole lot of them out there, but really it's great if you're promotion. You can turn ads on and off, especially during the holidays. Right now, that's really critical to be able to not be going out there and manually doing this sort of thing. Again, like turning you know, campaigns on and off as well. Checking your budget, doing like budget scheduling, you know, maybe having your budget higher on certain days of the week that you perform better, turning your budget down. Really a nice way to be able to do things and not have to, you know, do those on a manual basis. Segments is a great way to be able to refine your data down to a little bit more of a granular level. So you can look at your segments by the day of the and the hour of the day and the day of the week, so you can actually look and see what times of the day you might be performing better or what days of the week you're performing better. And this could be, again, where you might want to increase your paid search budgets or run special promotions during this time because you know you have a little bit more traffic going on during this particular time. So we'll talk a little bit about AdWords Scripts. This is something that's becoming very popular out there. This allows, though, you to make account level changes, which are automated. And you can, you know, actually go out, you can create these through JavaScript code, or you can actually go out there and download certain scripts that allow you to do the various tasks out there that you might want to do. But keep in mind that this does do broad swooping changes across your account, so you want to be careful with how you do it, and possibly you might want to test it out a little bit. You can take these scripts and store them and modify them as needed, but again, your mind is because they do you can make really large scale changes. Be very careful of how you use those. Pacing is very, very important, especially if you manage multiple accounts. And I'm a big proponent of Excel, which I'm sure most of you guys are too. And I've developed like pacing spreadsheets that, especially if I had clients that had varying budgets from month to month and were very fixed budgets from month to month, right? But making sure that you flighted the budget out evenly. If you notice that you were pacing kind of hot during the beginning of the month, that you want to make sure that your daily spend was, come down a little bit. I use it like this that basically allows me each month to show, how I'm paying, being able to, and especially if you've got varying budgets and multiple accounts, it's really important to be able to track this. And it is, but it really can make the difference to making sure that you keep your spend and your budgets on track. So let's talk about the checklist. So I'd like to break it down to daily, weekly, and monthly. Pacing is obviously something you want to check every day. We all know that sometimes, since AdWords can spend up to 15 to 20% more of your set daily budget, and especially if you've got like a small budget and you want to make sure that you don't go overspending, always good to check those. I always look at my dimensions tab every day too, just to see how things looked from the day before, if I'm coming in from the weekend, if I didn't check things over the weekend, how things are pacing, what looks like. A lot of times you can catch things that that time, blocking it out on your calendar if you can, just to be able to do those things. So weekly, to look at the search query reports to update the negatives and add any new keyword possibilities that might be good. I also add filters. We talked about filters earlier, so running for like the current week and previous week and comparing the data, see if there's like trends or something that's different from week to week. Look at the dimensions tab again to look at the last 7 to 14 days. Again, it's kind of taking that look to see if you can see any kind of anomalies, if everything's pacing properly, if there's any kind of red flags out there. So monthly, I like to look at the SQR data to kind of get an overall view of how things have been performing, looking to see if there's, some kind of new trends with keywords that I might want. You want to check your extension performance, because even though you have extensions out there, especially with site links and things, you might want to tweak those. And obviously, if you're in the holiday season, those things could be changed on a weekly or possibly every few days. You also want to look at your competitors as well. What they're doing out there in the paid search world, kind of you can get some feel for like how much they're spending, maybe looking to see if there's someone new that's entering the market, because that's always important. Example for these accounts, and do I need to kind of look at my daily spends? Do I need to kind of maybe, maybe if I'm having I might actually run some monthly scripts as well, just to get that feel for how things have performed during the month, and looking to see if there might be some larger optimizations that might need to be done. So we're going to go real quick, because I know we're getting a little tight on time, about this and things regarding bidding. So kind of some of the, a little bit of the high level on like main small account that's, easiest thing to do. You obviously have control over your bids. It can be time intensive if you're managing a large account or actually multiple campaigns. So sometimes in a case like that, having some kind of an automated bidding policy can work very well. It does get AdWords control over. But at the same time, it might limit your number of clicks. But again, sometimes depending on how much time you might have to manage these things, sometimes setting up some automated CPC can be good. Then we have enhanced CPC, which is focused more on conversions with a specific cost per acquisition. This requires conversion optimizers, so you have to have at least 15 conversions in the last 30 days to utilize it. I've seen it at Cisco here as well for some campaigns that met those criteria, and it actually performs halfway good, but I've definitely seen it perform a little bit better when in regards to like a retail situation. So we'll talk a little bit about mobile. We all know mobile is the big thing right now, and mobile work for me. So with mobile, you really have to have a user experience. It's really important that your ad copy should contain the word mobile if you're going to be mobile devices. You have to really have strong. So you need to make sure that you really capture their attention. You have to look at mobile inventory. With mobile, you typically don't have as much. Usually it's like maybe 2. So that you're not going to have as again, the desktop experience where you're going to have, the ads at the top and ads at the right rail and possibly at the bottom. You're not going to definitely have as much. Are designed for mobile for search, and then your call to action too much text. Again, it's important to get people's attention, but you want to make sure you've got a shorter, sweeter amount of text that you need to deal with mobile. We're going to talk a little bit about display. When you think about display, some people get a little bit nervous about that because your ads can be all over the place, but it's a great way to get out there to an audience that you may not be currently reaching with regular search. Well, what's important is to make sure with your ads, you put your ads on sites that are relevant to your business. But you do have the ability to exclude sites that you do not want to, have your ads show up on. The lovely thing with display, there's so many cool ad formats. You got the video and the interactive. So it is a great marketing tool to use. But you do have to keep in mind it is a little bit more of a higher spend than regular search, but it can be very effective. So yeah, we talked a little bit about.
It seems
Yes.
Some people are just struggling with the sound, but it's getting lost continuously. If you can just get closer to the speakerphone, and we have about 5 minutes left. My apologies.
Okay, no problem. I'll get a little bit closer. Hopefully that'll help. So again, we talked about with display, very important to manage your placements. Always, check those on a daily basis. You can create placement exclusion lists across your campaigns as well, which can be very helpful to make sure that your placements don't show up where you don't want them to play. When using keywords and interest targeting, this allows you to create automatic placements, and this again can have your ads show up on sites that may not be relevant. So again, it's really more about a management effort to make sure that you keep up with that. And you really want to think carefully about your strategy. What is the audience that you do want to target, and what kind of budget do you want to have for display? Because again, display can be a little bit more of a Wild West scenario where you can show up in a lot of different places. but at the same time, it is a way to get your ads out there to maybe, again, to consumers that you might not be able to reach otherwise. So we'll talk a little bit about remarketing. This is a great tool that we've used a lot here at Cisco that allows you to target people that had visited your site previously, whether they, bounced off of a page or they've actually made a purchase. So you can create a custom offer based on, the page that they were on, and you can target, again, people that have, been to your site and have left your site and converted, or have actually just, whatever actions that they've taken. You can create segmented remarketing lists based on these particular pages. So again, allowing you to create a special offer to get people to come back. And again, it allows you the usage of both text and image ads. And I know we're getting a little bit close on time, so I'll kind of run through this real quickly. So there's a couple of different ways to look at remarketing. There's the remarketing list for search ads versus the regular display remarketing. While both allow you to add users by the virtue of cookies, marketing list for search ads, target people that had been to your site and when they're again searching for your product or service. So it's again really targeting a real user that is still interested in your product. So talk a little bit about a case study I did with one client. They were an online retailer. They developed custom fireplaces. They wanted to retarget the customers with promotion, people that had come to their site and had not converted. So we saw a 35% increase in conversions within a 6-month period. Most of their conversions ended up coming from remarketing as opposed to search. So they were able to basically have more of their conversions come from the remarketing efforts that they had as opposed to regular search. And they were a very small client. They had a very, very small paid search budget, but they wanted to try to do remarketing, and it worked really well for them. So we did a remarketing case study here at Cisco, which again was driving customers to an offer page which didn't convert. So we provided them a little bit of a different user experience. We didn't provide them an offer, so to speak, so it wasn't like, obviously they didn't get a discount, but they got more information about the product. And with an 8-month time period, most of the conversions again came, 48%, so not quite. But it really allowed people to get that more personal ad that they were looking for and getting what they were looking for, whether it was, more information or, a deal.